I do, we need Chris.
Well,
I am, are you Chris?
is there anybody else?
Hello, Kim. Good afternoon, Chris.
Can you hear us? I hope.
Joe, I swear this barbecue looks like Joe, don't you?
I don't care.
Okay.
Like a Jane, you could be a Jane. So you don't have any Jones? No Jones? There are no Jones in there. These books are about 20 years old, so, and nobody's name.
Okay, I think they can hear us. Let's get started.
All right.
Yes.
Are you sure it's okay now, Laura? if we
Would
talk
someone
about-
close the door over there? So we have Kim in Zoom so far. If anyone else comes in, let me know. She wrote one thing in the chat that she hears
I
us.
shouldn't shut the door, Adele's not here.
She'll probably be coming.
She may not be coming.
Thank you for coming. We'll be trying to do this hybrid version through the winter when many people head south. Masks are optional for anyone coming in the library, except the staff is required to wear them. So I'll keep mine on, but it's optional for you. I want to mention something that I noticed. Patty Callahan, if you remember, we read the book Becoming Mrs. Lewis, and people seem to really like it a lot. She has a new one coming out in October. And it's another one to do with C.S. Lewis. I believe it's called Once Upon a Wardrobe. Well, it's to do with the book, Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe. So if you were a fan of her last book, you might want to put that one on hold. I think that sounds pretty interesting. So today we're doing the Jane Austen Society. We're trying to have, after two sessions of fairly deep, heavy books, I thought I was looking for something lighter. And so this month and next month are a little lighter and a little funnier and more, what can I say, easier to read. So I hope you enjoyed the Jane Austen Society. I've heard already some people aren't great Jane Austen fans, but we'll see what everyone thinks. Natalie Jenner is the author, and she has a lot of videos online where she's talking about how she came to write the book. Apparently her husband became very ill. She was trying to start a bookstore, but because he became ill, they changed their plans, and she ended up, when he went golfing, she went to England and spent a lot of time in the Jane Austen house, Chawton Cottage. And she's pretty obsessed with it. It's kind of interesting to see how obsessed she is. I sort of identify with some of that myself. And she is an attorney also, which is pretty interesting. So we've had a number of these authors who are attorneys. I think Kristen Hanna's another one. So I think they write really well because they're taught to write briefs and things like that. And I'd be interested to hear what all of you think of the book. Did anyone else do any research on the author?
I looked at a video. I thought she was boring.
Thought she was what?
I thought she was boring.
Oh, boring.
She admits that she's never written before.
Mhm.
I think she writes fairly well.
She did write before. She said she has 5 books locked in a case. Yeah, she tried to
Oh,
write.
that's right. They've never been published. You're
Right, never
You're right.
published.
I thought the interview was boring. I thought she was I thought she should have had coaching. And now that I hear she was a lawyer, I really think she was boring. But I thought the book was entertaining. And a review I read of it said that it was a very good book. It was published in 2020, June of 2020, I think. And they said that it was a very good book for 2020 because it took you back and you escaped. And considering that the characters, not all of them, but most of them escape into Austen, I thought that made sense. And I'm not a great Austen fan, but I got the Austenness of the book. I thought it was worthy of reading. I thought it was fluid. I liked the plot twist.
Okay, anyone else have anything to say right off the bat? I was told to write a book review for the Pulse, so the Peninsula Pulse. So I happened to be reading this book, so I decided to write this. And it did remind me, if you read the article, it was really shortened from what I originally wrote because it had to fit a certain size. But one thing that I did mention that was kept in the article is when I was at school in England, my landlady said she always read Jane Austen when she had hard times in her life. And she didn't seem to be the type of person who would read Jane Austen. So that sort of stuck with me. And then I find it interesting. I've been kind of fascinated by the British Reading Agency. I don't know if anyone here has heard of it, but it's they have a lot of things online. And if you go to reading, this didn't get in the article, but reading.well.org.uk/books. They have, they actually prescribe, in some cases, doctors prescribe books for therapy for different diseases and things. And they also have this thing called mood boosting books, which I think is really interesting. And they really get into this whole thing of how reading does make a difference on how you think and behave and feel. And I'd highly recommend going there and having a look at it because I think it's really fascinating. So the point of my article is this is a mood boosting book for this time when we're all going through a crisis right now. So that's my feeling. Kim, did you have something to say? Oops, someone else is waiting. There we go. Does anyone else have an opinion?
I liked it. I thought it was a little bit slow in the beginning, but I think that she put it together pretty well. I mean, considering you got all these characters that are coming from all different, backgrounds, whatever, and obviously the thing they have in common is reading Jane Austen and people that you wouldn't think would read Jane Austen, like the farmer and whatever. So.
Yeah, another thing I wrote in the article that got cut out. Actually, traditionally, men read Jane Austen a lot,
Yeah, that's
which was kind of interesting when I was looking into it. And there's a bunch of books out there written by men. One is something I don't have my original article here, but Two Guys Reading Jane Austen or something like this. And there's a whole bunch of, there's actually a couple books by men with the same feeling. One is like a father reads Jane Austen, what it teaches him. So what do you think of that? That today we sort of think of all of these films and this female audience, but really traditionally it was not women. And in the very beginning, the critics were, Prince Regent was one of the fans. Anyone have any?
Well, I think
feeling
they
about
have a
that?
preconceived idea, most men, and wouldn't even pick her up.
Today.
today. Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm Jean. This is my first visit here, but I was Zoomed with you last month when you did the Midnight Library. I thought having the men in early on in the book was a great motivator for me. When I first saw the book, I was expecting there's a group of women, they're going to go on a trip, they're going to want to do a Jane Austen trail thing and revisit and so forth. I found it very motivating that men were involved in the story from the very first with him on the farm, and then Jack Lawrence was involved and so forth. So I thought that was part of what kept me reading. I was wondering if when you read it and you had this idea about Natalie Jenner trying to recreate sort of a Jane Austen novel, did it motivate any of you to either want to go back and read a Jane Austen novel or pick one of them up for the first time? Did it have an effect like, gee, I want to go back now and read Emma or Northanger Abbey, or I never read it and I want to see, wanted to know if anybody connected and wanted to either go back and read something or read it for the first time.
I did not. Anyway, this is what I did. I went as far as this. I looked up what was the best one to start with. And they said, okay, this is the best one to start with. And it wasn't her first. And I can't remember the answers to these things. But, and the other one was what was the most humorous? And that was one of the ones that was published after her death, was the most.
Sanditon? Sanditon is the one that unfinished.
Okay, there were two that were published after her death. So let's see, the most romantic and,
The worst, Northanger Abbey. Well, I've always thought so, sorry.
What was the word?
In my opinion, Northang or Abbey.
You're not alone on that, I think.
I think that might have been mentioned. Oh,
Yes.
Anybody find out how much historical accuracy there was in some of the stuff in this book?
None of
Is there
it.
anything at all?
At the end of the book about the museum, the Jane Austen Museum. I don't know if it's in London or just outside of London.
Well, they said
Her
the
house-
places in the book were real, but the story was fictional.
I just
The story
wondered,
was
like,
the-
was there a
according to-
library in the house with all these?
I think there was actually, yeah. According to what she said in the videos I watched, she made the story up completely. There is a real Jane Austen Society that was started by a bunch of people
At the same time,
at the, in
in the 40s.
around the same time. But the plot here is completely invented. And she did spend a ton of times in the house itself, both the big house and the cottage. And she talks about in one of the, in the video, in one of the books, she apparently wrote that some room is in a certain location in it. Then she found out later it wasn't, she got it wrong. And so she was cringing. But so there was a library, and a lot of the rooms that she describes are real rooms, is my understanding of it. In fact, Chawton House or Chawton Cottage, they have a YouTube channel where they post a talk with her. So they're very much involved with this. I think it's good promotion for them, even though the story itself is make-believe.
Well, one of the things she said in the video that I saw was she decided to write this and she just decided to have 4 males and
Exactly.
4
That,
females, and
Yeah.
she let it evolve. And I don't know, I'm not being critical, I'm just saying that I find that fascinating. Just thought, okay, I'll do this.
yeah, but look, it had it had someone think that that was a good thing, which I agree with you. And also, I think that it was she did some research, and I think it's reflecting the historic readers of the books, which today we have this certain image of it being a girl thing, but it's not. So I think that's really important point that she brought out.
Right.
Yeah, I need
I'm
to
not
look that up
disagreeing.
because I have never heard that before.
Yeah,
But it says here in the historical note, if you're lucky enough to visit the house, you will find the great house, the grounds, the walled garden, even the shepherd's hut is described within this book. The one major change is the location of the Knight family library from a more removed corner of the ground floor to next to the great hall, thus enabling a host of fictional characters to run into each other and set the story into action. And actually, it says it was under the care and ownership of the real life Knight family until the early 1900s. They were forced to sell it to a golf course development company, which soon after defaulted, and then to a philanthropist who restored the home, returned it into the world-class library and heritage site that it is today. So,
That sort of follows the story.
right.
Very
Well, yeah.
close, very
Yeah.
close, right.
The golf course.
I
Yeah.
thought one of the things that was most interesting to me, I felt that the characters in the story, her story, were that their lives had in many ways followed the course of the lives of Jane Austen characters.
Yes.
Certainly the hesitancy for decades on the part of men particularly to commit marriage. And women also who just turned their back on what could have been certainly a more interesting, thrilling, happier life because of something, their father's wishes, or it's just a different way of doing things than now completely. But I found that very interesting, that parallel.
They must not be able to hear me.
oh, is that Carol?
I'm here.
Yeah, hi, Carol.
Hi.
And do we hear you, Kim?
Hello.
Hello, was someone saying something just now? We do our best with these hybrid programs, trying to get it to work, but it sounds like we do hear you. And you hear us, right?
I do. I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Carol.
Did you want to say something, Carol? Good to
Well-
see you again.
Case in point with what was just mentioned, in the book, it states that one of the main issues of so many of Austen's male protagonists is that they don't know they're in love with the object of their desire. And that's true in this book. With
That's the
Andrew Forrester, it's all suppressed. And with Dr. Benjamin Stone, where it's really suppressed. Also tied up with mourning and guilt, but it's very interesting. And one would think that there would be another pairing, such as Adam Berwick and Evie Stone. And I'm kind of glad the author didn't go that way.
That was a plot twist that I liked.
It was a surprise.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise. And Evie Stone pursued a career. She became educated. And it seems that Adam Berwick, to some extent, paired up with Yardley Sinclair and the little dog.
Yeah.
To some extent he did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, that's okay. Evie's going to be the focus of the, I guess they call it a sequel to this book that'll be out next May. And I don't know if that maybe has something to do with it, that she decided, I have another direction that I want this character to go in. And I understand that she's going to finish school, get to school, can't get the job because they favor men for whatever job. And she ends up running a bookshop with two other women. And it's only Evie that's the character from Jane Austen. So that's going to be out next May. And it's funny that she mentioned Evie because maybe that had been the author's plan to
That's
go
where
in
she's
this
going.
direction.
Yeah. I had another comment about the male component. Curiously, one of my younger son's best friends from undergraduate school is an avid fan of Jane Austen. And he's male. And in fact, he named his third child Austen. Whereas his two previous children, 1 and 2, have more traditional names, William and Evelyn. And then the trend I know is for girls is for English surnames. It's very popular now. But he did name his third child Austen because he is such a fan of Jane Austen. And he considers her the greatest writer of all time.
Well, and I found the name of those 2 books that I mentioned I found my original article, Jane Austen Education, How 6 Novels Taught Me About Love, Friendship, and the Things That Really Matter by Steve Chandler. And another book is 2 Guys Reading Jane Austen. Oh, Steve Chandler wrote that one. And the other one, I think his name's William Dressy. I can't pronounce it, sorry, but men writing books like that, just like, who really appreciate it. And I personally think Jane Austen is interesting because Shakespeare and Jane Austen have written stories that are retold and retold and retold in so many different forms. And they've done Jane Austen in all of these different, modern, what are some of those films that have come out?
Clueless.
Mean Girls or something, I don't know. Clueless, yeah. They seem to be so universal that they're being retold in different generations. And I think that's kind of fascinating because not too many authors succeed in capturing universal understanding of people. So that's my perspective.
I enjoyed the book a lot. At the beginning of the book, they introduced a lot of new people. So I wrote everyone down in a little note. But then they started in on, well, like Adeline or Adelaide, whatever it was. Then they call her Mrs. So-and-so, and it took a while to figure out, well, this is the same person. But they wouldn't say the last name always, or you're guessing a lot. That was a little bit hard, I thought. But since I wrote it down, it eventually made sense. But I like that there are so many different stories going on, lots of different things going on, and then they all get together on this, in this group. Common cause, that was nice.
Yeah, and talking about how the books echo what's going on in this story. Persuasion is the one where, what's her name was, I can't think of her name right now, was persuaded not to marry the person she wanted to marry, the captain, was it? And then later on,
Willoughby.
yeah.
Captain Willoughby.
Yeah.
And then later on, they got together, and that's similar to Francis, wasn't it? And the lawyer.
Andrew,
Yeah,
That was so sad.
right.
What a life
Yes.
by the window and watch everybody.
yeah.
And I had hopes for Jack Lawrence for a while. I thought, because sometimes there's a kind of a bad boy in her
Yeah.
stories, like
Right.
Lydia's in Pride and Prejudice and that Willoughby. And I kept thinking that Jack was going to really be what he seemed. And then, of course, he wasn't. He did have some good qualities, though, as all Jane Austen's males. I mean, there's some good things about them, but it doesn't really win out. And I agree with the diversity of the characters. And they brought even a Hollywood actress, got involved in this. She's as different from Evie as you could imagine. And yet all of them are kind of, connected to the story. So there was a great amount of diversity.
Excuse me.
How much those, go ahead.
What good qualities do you think Jack Leonard possesses?
Jack Lawrence.
No, Leonard.
Jack Leonard, I'm sorry. I thought that he, in the beginning, he kind of was sort of with her and he maintained that. And I had hopes that he was going to be a different than most Hollywood directors. He seemed to care for her and he wanted to take her to England and he was okay with that. And I kept thinking maybe he's going to be different than the other characters. He didn't turn out to be that way. But I was sort of led to believe there for a while that he wasn't going to be, that he'd be with her or stick with her. He didn't, but I thought he might.
Yeah, I agree. I
Kind
think
of Jane Austen.
for a while you
Yeah, I
thought that he was really supporting her and helping her to
Yeah.
follow her dreams, but then he turned out to be
Mhm.
sneaky.
Well, and the father, her father was awful, Francis's father.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to have liked that Evie character.
Yeah.
I very much did too, but she kept reminding me of someone and I finally figured out she reminded me of Mary Anning
Oh,
from Remarkable Creatures. And perhaps they lived at the same time, but Mary was from as lowly a social strata as there could have been. And she bloomed into academia and recognition, not as much as she should have gotten, but close.
Yeah,
And Evie,
very true.
yeah,
same thing.
Yeah.
good comparison.
And we kind of like the underdog moving up, don't
We
we?
love an underdog.
I love the way she was documenting all the books. I mean,
Mm.
Mhm.
and did she go on to Oxford in this book already?
Yes.
And so
Yep.
that's what the next one will be about. I think that'll be really fun to see. So. Well, anyone have anything to bring out, or should I read some of these questions? It's each character in the novel has a favorite Jane Austen story and character. What did you think about the way they discuss the books? And does anyone have a favorite book or character? Has anyone not read any of her books or Austen's? How did you manage that?
No, I haven't.
You seen the films and things?
Yeah, there was a movie.
Well, there's tons
Yes,
of
there's
versions.
several, yeah.
What's the movie called? And Dora Shakespeare did a really nice Pride and Prejudice a few years ago.
Yeah,
Well done.
so,
Which Pride and Prejudice?
Dora Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mark Moody was yeah.
so if you haven't read any of her books, how did this come over for you? Was it kind of hard to understand what was
No,
going on, or
I didn't think
was it?
so.
It was a good story on its own?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought so.
interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You were going to say something before, did you?
Yeah,
I forgot. Oh, yeah, when that
Think
one-
of it.
So what is everyone's favorite Jane Austen for those who have done it? Nobody has anything to say?
I have a favorite.
Okay,
When I was 15, I first read Pride and Prejudice. And I was so fortunate to have an instructor who really guided us 15-year-olds, these are sophomores in high school, to appreciate Jane Austen and the timelessness of her writing. And as a 15-year-old, I fell in love with Mr. Darcy, and I still am.
Colin Firth.
I'm Colin Firth.
Colin Firth.
yeah. Well, I like Persuasion. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but
I'm kind of an Emma fan. I thought that, she's kind of a strong character.
yeah. And she's so bold about being
Yeah.
a strong character and not always right, but always seems to have goodwill.
Frequently not right.
I like her.
You love to hate.
Well, she's cute, but she's so like,
Yes, I agree.
yeah.
What about the
Sense and Sensibility is another one.
since, yeah, that's a really good one too. What about that twist where Adam doesn't acknowledge that he's the son
Yeah.
or one of the family? What do you think about that? Was that a good way to write it, or I sort of wished he had?
Yeah.
But then maybe it'd be too good of an ending. What do you think?
Well, in light of the fact that he turns out to be gay, and we're in the late 1940s when it happens, I think it's all set in a time period well,
Mhm.
because he would have been an illegal human being in
Yeah.
Britain at that time. And I think that he's happier being with the antique dealer and than he is, and he's a founding member of it, and everybody figures it out that he's who he is.
But he would have inherited the,
Yeah, but I think that he was just happy with, I think that he was a very believable, simple man
Yeah.
that was happy with what he had. And he'd accomplished what he wanted. The house got saved. The society got formed. He had friendship. He had love. I think he was outstanding. I think he was the best person in the book.
yeah, isn't it kind of a nice irony too, that he's the one who started it and you wouldn't have expected him to care, but maybe something in his background just made him feel it was the right thing since he was one of the family.
Mhm.
His mother was,
Oh, she was dreadful.
yes, that's a good word, dreadful.
Has anyone been to Chawton House?
No.
Nobody?
I think I might have walked by it, but I was just trying to look on Amanda to see
Oh.
where is it exactly?
It's west of London, isn't it? Like by about 40 miles or something like that.
Yeah, not too far outside.
From the pictures, I was curious. It has Chawton Cottage has 5 or 6 chimneys, and the big house, you can't find it. It's like, I thought that was a lot of fireplaces in that house.
Well, yeah, but that was their heating.
Yeah, I thought about that. It was the only way, but in pictures of the big house, well, it's much more ornate. But you would have thought you would have seen a chimney or two.
Do you think it was, well, we already decided that it was good to set it in the 40s and the real one was started in the 40s. Has anyone ever thought of joining the society? I actually looked at it. It's not cheap.
How much is it?
I forget now, but something like, I don't remember, but you get to go to different events and they have festivals all the time. There's a US one and there's a UK one, so
How
they're a
many
little different.
people are in the society? Like great numbers?
Yeah, I think thousands, but it's hard to remember. But they do have talks and lectures and things like that, so there's that side of it, if you're really involved. But it wasn't cheap enough for me to just want to join on the side. Do you have any other author that you think can compare to Jane Austen? Anyone here?
Compared to Jane Austen.
I think she stands by herself personally.
I did do a class for learning and retirement some time back. Was anyone there? On Sanditon, we decided to do that because she didn't finish the book and they were making a TV show out of it. Has anyone seen the TV?
I did, yeah.
Yes, I saw it.
What do you think of it? Do you
It
think-
broke my heart.
Why is that? Because you
Because
liked it or didn't like it?
I liked it, but the ending left me just chilled. Because she goes back to, it's just so sad. I know everything can't have a happy ending, but it seemed to not only be sad, but it had no resolution.
Yeah.
In the sequel,
Hmm.
apparently they're gonna change the whole, which is going out pretty soon, I guess. They're gonna change the whole, the male character is gonna be even in it, I guess.
Mhm.
She's going to just be something
Oh.
missing in her life, so they are gonna go off in a different direction.
Well, it'll be interesting, but the actual story was kind of interesting. She did just drop it in the middle. She died at a fairly young age, in the
Mhm.
40s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of tragic that she didn't get to write more. Because she really made a mark with what little she did have. Is there anything anyone wants to bring out, or should I read some more of these questions? I have the feeling not everyone here is a great Jane Austen fan.
Oh, you know what it was? It was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
They had to do it when we were younger.
Does anyone know how
Everybody
to
should read one
translate
for next
pounds
month.
into dollars?
No.
It's 28 pounds to belong to the Jane Austen UK Society.
Yeah,
Well, it's probably.
It used to be about 280 or something.
Yes, Siri.
It's about
Yes.
3 times
I
that.
had a hard enough time finding the real Jane Austen. I had to put in what is the real Jane Austen Society, because every time I put in Jane Austen Society, this book came up.
yeah,
One of
yeah.
the- oh, I'm sorry, Laura. One of the things that hit me as I was reading this book was the importance of saving artifacts
Yeah.
from life, and I mean, I'm not a world traveler, but I've been to enough places where I've gone to little museums here and there to see what a little museum has saved and so forth. And it is, I hope that will continue to be a thing, because it is neat to see and to save history in some way, and not
Yes.
just, you have a picture of it somewhere to be able to see it. I think that's a neat concept that this book brings out,
Mhm.
and I believe in too.
38.62 US dollars.
38
bucks
A year.
a year.
Well, and if you're in the areas where they do the programs, I think it's, would be
Right.
interesting. But
Sand is
I don't know if they do many online or anything like that.
more recent, finished, yes.
Has anyone considered joining an author's fan club before? It's kind of an interesting
Dead
idea.
authors fan club, yeah.
There are over 5,000 members in the one in the United States.
Yeah.
I wonder if they get together and dress up like the characters
They
like
do.
Star Trek people do.
I think they're the original dress up group.
Oh, they-
They're booked in 2023 to be Pride and Prejudice in Denver, a Rocky Romance. In 2022, Sense and Sensibility in the City of Gardens. I neglected to say that there are 5,000 members in Canada and the United States. They're going to Victoria. That'd be all right to see those gardens in Victoria. I could see doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one in Chicago in 2021,
One of the events in 2021. So they have them all over.
all over the world, or all over the United States.
Did you like that fact that one of them is an American actress?
Yes, I
Yes.
thought that was very interesting.
Considering that so many of her books have been put into movies. It's kind of interesting.
Well, and almost all the characters had seen one of her movies too, or seen her movies in the book.
In the actresses' movies, yeah.
Except
so they-
Francis, who didn't know who anybody was.
Right, well, right, but I mean, there wasn't, it all tied them
Yeah.
together.
Right,
too.
the others did.
Yeah. And then they sort of accepted her too, because they had seen her on the screen. So, and didn't Adam meet her in the field once?
Yeah, before she was a star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the one that told him to read it. Yeah.
It is important. Just think, one person makes a suggestion to one person on something to read, and it really gives their whole life a big shift.
Yeah.
sometimes.
Right.
It's funny that you say that because I'm thinking right away about the Midnight Library from last month, and you could just pick up some idea, one idea from that book can make really, a difference.
For the characters, you mean, or?
For any,
yourself?
well, I was just thinking like in Midnight Library, everybody's gets something a little bit different out of it. But you're right, just one sentence or one paragraph in that book, and it could make somebody just sit back and think a minute. And what I'm thinking about could be something different from somebody else. But I think that that's part of the appeal about why Midnight Library's been on the bestseller list as long as it has.
Mhm.
Books do not stay on the bestseller list, I don't think, very long anymore. John Grisham doesn't even stay. But that book's been on there for quite a few weeks already, and I think there's a reason, not that I wanted to bring the discussion
No,
back
no,
to
I totally.
Midnight
agree
Library,
with
but it was
that.
something that Joe said there, that it was just, it's like a self-help book, but it's not really a self-help book. And there's just something in it for
Well,
everybody.
there's a lot of
It's-
philosophy in that book too. Ton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you pick up, and what I pick up would be different from what you pick up, but it can really make a difference.
New or used?
Laura,
Yeah.
you should go to Jane Austen in Chicago in October. It's incredible what they're.
This coming October,
Yep.
what will they be doing that catches your eye?
They're incorporating it in the arts, and
Road
they're gonna take you on you can go on a city historic bus tour, and they're gonna explain a movie, Chicago movies. Franklin, they're gonna take you to Roby House and the Rookery, the Art Institute, the Magnificent Mile. They're gonna take you all over Oak Park to look at Frank Lloyd Wright. And the theme of it is that Jane Austen is in the arts.
Sounds like there's circling around the University of Chicago, because that's all in that area.
Well, yeah, and the Chicago Opera is doing Persuasion. And they're gonna do a Magnificent Mile walking to, it's a great promotion for Chicago.
What month?
I mean, October 15th, this October.
So they go to different places
They go
and
to
look at,
different places, yeah,
the local.
and they incorporate it into it. There are two women in the beginning of the Chicago thing that sing a song about how they're in the society and how it works in Chicago.
There you go.
So that's the Jane Austen Society of Chicago.
No, of North America.
Of North
and-
America,
and which
okay.
includes Canada, there are 5,000. And I didn't find out how much it cost to belong.
Everybody get their credit cards out.
So do you think this was a good book to read this month after the others? I really love the Midnight Library too. But it wasn't easy.
I agree.
Wait till you get to elegy, Homeland Elegy.
Is that another one?
Oh, is that hard?
Which one?
Homeland Elegy.
Oh,
I was hoping it wasn't
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
It's very, very, it's
yeah.
gonna be very good discussion. It'll be very hard to read, I think.
I've got it on CD and the author reads it.
Oh,
Okay.
that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why did everyone vote for this book?
We didn't know we were voting.
I missed the vote, but I would have voted for this one.
Well, it's interesting because I had no idea about the Midnight Library. I thought it was some sort of magical thing about
Mhm.
libraries.
No,
You know, it was something.
it sort of was.
Sort of, not
Sort
in-
of, there was.
I voted for it because it said if you like the potato peelings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
this
Guernsey
one.
Sweet potato.
And you think that
Yeah,
it was
I love
the,
that book.
you think that is a good statement, that it is similar or not? What do you
Well, I
think?
was thinking there was gonna be some letters in it. So,
Letters?
Well, that's what the other one,
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
the Potato Peel Society.
I
right?
think.
the
that
Guernsey.
Yeah, I
I
love,
think that that's true, but a lot of people that did love the potato
Was great.
peel thing didn't like the book so much.
Didn't like this one as much,
Because I think it was too
or
broad a
the
brush.
potato peel book.
I think it's too broad a brushstroke. The only commonality that I see is it's a group of people in England in
Yeah,
the forties with a cause
Yeah.
that get together because of a book.
right.
well, that's
What
pretty,
what the people on Guernsey do and
Yeah.
what these people do are two entirely different things.
Oh, yeah.
So, I would say it was too broad a brushstroke. Well, I mean, you could, what I said is true.
Also, I think the other one is better written than this one, but
They're two different kinds of books.
Yeah, they're two different kinds of writing.
what did you think
I
was not so good about this book in the writing? The,
well, was she trying to sound like Jane Austen or?
I think so.
So, do you think she did a good job?
No.
so what's everyone who liked the book?
I did.
I loved the book.
Yeah. And
Okay,
who,
yeah.
who votes thumbs down? Who's thumbs down on this book?
Okay.
I liked it, but I'm closing books that I don't like. And what I've heard about, I've not read Midnight Library. And what I've heard about it, I'm not gonna open it.
Oh,
What I've heard about Homeland Elegies, I'm not gonna open it. I'm in a book club in Egg Harbor that's reading a book called The Witch of the Hour or The Hour of the Witch.
Yes,
And I read the first 25 pages and closed it.
right.
I don't want to read stuff that's bothersome.
Right.
I know.
And if that's shallow, then I'm shallow.
No, but
Okay.
that's where I.
no,
am
it's
right
not a
now,
matter
too,
of
though.
being shallow.
I mean, I
Yeah,
told
which
you,
one? There's no way I'm reading it.
I told you
Which one?
earlier
Which
that
book?
I discovered Nicholas Butler.
Yeah,
The wit.
And in
Yeah,
less
the
than
witch,
10 days,
yeah,
I've read
said
4
the
of his
witch
novels.
Accuses
Yeah.
his wife of
I
being
mean, I
a
want to
witch.
read people that hold my
And that's
attention.
the- yeah.
He talks about
I
things
know
that
the book.
are, he's not shallow.
Is it uplifting?
He, in some regards, yes, in some regards, no. It's thought provoking. He's very male, which I find very interesting because he talks about things. that-
so this was not uplifting or was?
No, this was great. I loved it. It was,
Good.
it was like a quick, easy read.
Mhm.
And there were analogies to Jane Austen that I thought made sense. And I think that Austen is to be revered.
It's very dominating.
I would disagree with you on Akhtar and the Homeland Elegies. There was a part in the middle that I didn't like. He had too much emphasis on his own sexuality and a period of time when he was sleeping with a different woman every night and had no.
I haven't read it yet.
I didn't get to that part yet.
Pretty graphic.
The overall theme of the book, trying to explain how complicated it is when you're an immigrant in this country to be both American and loyal to your homeland, and using the example of his parents, where his mother's heart and mind were
Do you
still.
think I should
in
read it?
Pakistan, you know. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. Skip the part about the sentence. You know what all I mean.
Or, and I think you should read Midnight Library.
And read the last chapter, which talks about free speech and why, you get the idea why he wrote the book, because he wanted to explain free speech.
I've seen all his plays. I never missed one. And the Milwaukee Rep has been.
Oh, I know who this guy
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
We did it for,
Well, maybe.
I know this guy. The playwright.
The dinner.
Yes, okay, all right.
we did American Dervish a few years ago.
Yeah,
That was an amazing
yeah.
book.
Yes.
He's from Milwaukee.
Okay.
Um,
know this
I would
guy.
recommend the Midnight Library too,
Yeah.
because it ends in an uplifting way.
Okay.
He actually is using it as a kind of therapy.
What should I do about that one?
I don't know that one.
I think you should stay with it. It does give you some,
Have you read it?
yes,
Oh.
yeah. It was, I'm a Chris Bajalian fan, so I kind of.
I know, everyone says that this guy is just the greatest author, and I just like,
Yeah, and it's brutal.
20
There's
pages
some
of
brutal,
life
there are some
abuse,
brutal
that's for
parts
me.
about the way women were treated in the
Midnight
1700s.
Library.
all right, all right.
I mean, she's got her, you've got your list.
I didn't come because I was out of town.
I think that one thing I've learned from this book group is there's a lot of books that I wouldn't have chosen to read, but
That's
in
very
the end,
true.
I'm really appreciative
Mhm.
to have
That's
done it.
right.
Yeah.
It opens your eyes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And this one, I have to admit that I'm an Anglophile, and so this was like. So this was right down my alley, you know, it's like just fun. And I also get obsessed with subjects like that. You know, like the author was obsessed with the house and different, well, she spent so much time in that house. She lived in that house. If you watch her online, you'll see she went there in the morning. She was there all day,
Yep.
reading books, looking around, and went home at night. So she became really obsessed with the house in England. So I think that's kind of fun.
I like that article, or that group of articles about the books where you were in it, and then a couple of, it's like 3 other people or 4 other people in the newspaper.
Yeah,
The one about space, I'm gonna forward the whole thing to my son-in-law, maybe my son too, because those are books maybe that they hadn't heard of. And you know which one I'm talking about?
I can't remember the title, but I saw the whole list. Yeah.
Probably the one Gracie Johnson recommended. But I don't like it, that article was edited. That you did, because
But
I
that,
thought, when I read it, I thought, wow, this jumps from.
I think there's a word count.
This jumps from one thing to the great quote about the landlady.
Here's the whole article.
Oh.
I think it's a word count, and if anyone's interested, I think that, we could gather your recommendations and maybe we could submit it.
Well, they're pretty much using librarians, and like Gracie's the only.
I think there were other
non-librarian, isn't
people
she? Or
involved.
bookstore person, and
Yeah.
Gracie's the one that wrote I should call her Grace, but I've known her since she was a child. She is the one who's written all those articles about the bookstores all over Dorcom.
I haven't read
I think
that.
she has some sort of something published. 26-year-old.
If you're an Anglophile, have you read A God in Ruins?
And that's by, the title's familiar. What is
That's Virginia.
Virginia Woolf, was it?
No, it's a pretty new book.
Isn't it Chris Bergelian also? I think it's the same author as that,
As a witch.
which, the other witch.
No,
Isn't it A God in Ruins?
I don't know. I don't know that book, but are you recommending it?
Not necessarily. I mean, it was a book where I read it and I thought I was following along,
Kate
with
Atkinson?
how it went. And then
Different,
right
okay.
at the end, the author just turned you upside down. And I sort of felt deceived.
The title is A God in Ruins.
Yeah,
By
it's
Diane Uris.
No, I have.
Oh my gosh, and she's got Kate.
1999 novel by Leon Uris.
No,
Not that long.
No, this is Kate Atkinson.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
right.
Okay.
Oh,
Virginia.
Life After Life, Kate Atkinson? Is that
Yeah,
the one you mean? Life After Life?
No, that was
No.
her first.
Kate
book.
Atkinson?
Second book,
Oh.
it's called A God in Ruins,
and how does that pertain to,
because it takes place in England
mhm,
and it's in that
It must
World
not
War
be.
II time period
mhm.
for
Did you
part of
find
it.
it? 'Cause I only found the first one.
I only found
I have
Leon
to look
Uris.
into
Yeah,
that.
me too.
Yeah, it's and Kate.
And it's Kate Atkinson.
Atkinson.
I just wondered if,
Okay.
And I don't know.
if somebody else had read it.
Book 2 of 2.
It was for another book club and I didn't get to attend the meeting, so I just.
And what does everyone think about this English tradition where,
Laura's asking a question.
yeah, Jane Austen's brother actually was adopted by the Knight family because they didn't have an heir and that he was a relative, distant relative. So that's how, her brother's not, Austen, his name's Knight. That's true.
Right.
But the rich couple didn't have kids, so they just adopted him. Isn't that kind of,
Or as in Downton Abbey, they found an obscure second, but third, fourth relative, like in Matthew Crowley,
yeah,
because women didn't get.
No,
Women didn't
never.
get anything out of it. So
As in-
again, you gotta look at it when it's in its time period.
yeah.
It's typical of its time period. Is it right? And
It's just
in my
kind of
mind, in my
strange, right?
generation, no, but in theirs, it's totally acceptable.
But it's kind of strange that he, the family is so important in the Knight family, but he's not actually born a knight, right?
Right.
So you
That's
wonder
kind of
about
a
that.
play on words there.
But I think that did happen,
Oh, yeah.
not infrequently, that
Oh, yeah.
there would be an adoption to create an heir.
Yeah. So that's just an interesting twist because that really did happen. She had two brothers that were in the military, also sailors, right? So she had a kind of interesting family. Her life is pretty interesting in itself.
Given the chance for that lovely twist that Adam was in fact the nearest living male relative.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, so he could have inherited the whole thing and saved the museum straight up. Which I was hoping for, but didn't happen.
I too, I thought, oh, okay, now I know how it's gonna end, but it didn't.
No, but you wanted them to read about lugging all those books,
Yeah.
all that energy that it took to get everything out of there.
Amazing.
Well, and I love the way Evie was looking through all the books for little notes,
Yeah.
right? And finding them, because I do that myself. In fact, I'm going to be posting something in the genealogy local history Facebook page, a book that we have downstairs with all sorts of notes written in it. So I love looking in books and finding old notes written by people from the past. So that's kind of, I like that part of it. I like that Evie character, and I sure hope that the next one's going to
Right.
expand on all of that. So. Well, does anyone have anything else to say? We've sure gone around in a lot of different subjects here, but I think just reading in general is fun to talk over with people.
Mhm.
And how do we choose these books and why do we choose certain books? So thank you for adding that.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Well, we're ending a little early, but does anyone have anything else to say, or should we close and meet next week or next month?
Next month. Next month. And what's the book next month?
Next month is,
Yes.
Oh, that's right, yes.
is anyone familiar with Jane Smiley? I have not actually read
Yes.
her book.
I read several of hers.
Yeah.
1,000 Acres. and
Yeah,
It was totally different kind of book.
yeah.
This one called?
Is she in Wisconsin?
Did she write?
Well, I think of her as Iowa, but I think she went to the Iowa Writers. Yeah, but she writes kind of Midwestern things, I always thought.
A horse, a racehorse?
Yeah,
A dog
The Raven.
and a raven. I haven't gotten that far yet. Go around
Everybody can read a
Paris.
Jane
And
Austen.
who are
novel,
those,
too.
Nancy and Sid? I think that was so funny.
I haven't got
Nancy and
that.
Sid the ducks are,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, the
yeah.
He leaves and she stays.
I could just see this in a movie someday, yeah. Not Disney.
But it was so different than the usual Jane Smiley type, family chronicle type thing.
And they're talking about rats. That's where I am. I'm like,
Well, okay, I guess we'll say goodbye to you, Carol.
Bye, Carol.
Really?
Bye.
Good to see you.
And Kim. Oh, and there's Adele, and I didn't see her. Did anyone, oh, no. I hope she wasn't waiting. Oh, it says here from her.
what? Oh, that was a bell.
I hope she wasn't there very long.
Oh, there's Adele right.
Hi, Adele.
Hello, everybody. I'm so embarrassed. I forgot until about 20 minutes ago.
Oh, I'm sorry we didn't.
Well, I left the door open, Adele.
Can we hear you? Can we hear what you thought of the book? Because we're just ending in a few minutes, and we always like to hear what you have to say.
Nice to see you. I'll see you.
On the whole, I liked it. It was light, a good summer read. Also very predictable at the end.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of Jane Austen, but I have read enough of her to see the creative way that this writer has brought Jane in as another character of the story.
Good point. And the house also. as another king, the house and the family. Well, okay, I'm sorry you missed the meeting.
Me, I am in, my face is red with embarrassment.
Well, I'm glad you were here at the last minute. We're doing next month, Perestroika in Paris.
Yep.
And I would like to quickly mention that John Harris is doing the history book in October, if anyone's not aware of it. American Lion by John Meacham.
Oh, that's another tough read.
No, it's actually more gripping than you might think, once you get into the whole scandal.
It's long. It's long. I'm at the
You can just sort of
beginning
skim
too.
through some of it,
Okay.
but,
Laura,
you know, it's all, yes.
again, what you're saying? Okay,
Um,
wait a minute.
In October, the biannual history book will be American Lion by John Meacham with, led by John Harris.
Oh, when is that?
I forget the date. It's like
Well, it doesn't matter. I won't be here in October. I'm getting my.
well, I think we may be doing a hybrid.
I'm getting my knee replaced. I probably won't make any sense. I'll be drugged.
You mean we can watch that, Laura? on
It would
Zoom?
mean you could join this way. We're gonna try, I think we're gonna try a hybrid meeting.
Oh, wonderful.
So if you're in Florida or Arizona,
Definitely go to any discussion that man does. They're great.
Oh, yeah.
It's fabulous.
and he's the one who came up with the title. He wanted to do something a little more, you know, straight history. But I found the book was pretty, it seems long and you think Andrew Jackson's gonna be boring, but it starts out with this whole scandal of these women not accepting a different woman, and
Yeah, that's where I'm
it's
at.
kind of fun
Oh,
to see how people behaved back then, and
Not quite long enough.
Do we know the date?
I'm looking, I'll look it
Okay.
up quickly. Yeah, it's on our calendar.
Yeah.
October, I'm sorry, I didn't have it in front of me.
well, we're all just gonna not speak to you forever because of it.
No, I'm not. I thought it was the 24th.
Pass it around.
How about the 10th? Who thinks it's the 10th?
I think it's the 24th too. I have the book.
Oh, well, then we need Laura to clarify here.
I'm gonna get the phone and look.
I'm sorry, I'm not finding it right away, but maybe
It is on the calendar. I checked it out.
When you get done,
Did you get
send the box this way.
Some tomatoes you were talking
Yeah, I
about?
don't want any
Okay.
tomatoes.
All right, so you're in.
You're
not a tomato fan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Come join us again.
now where do you, where are you? Oh, I mean, where do you live?
I live in
it
Ann Arbor.
is
Oh, okay.
the 20th.
Well, I'm born and raised in
20th?
Illinois, and when I retired from teaching, my
You
husband. and I
sound
lived
like
close here.
Chris.
The 20th at 2 o'clock.
See?
Oh, 20th at 2. That's the
My
last
husband's a builder. We inherited some property there in Egg Harbor, so we built a home here.
20th
I've been
at 2
coming to
o'clock.
Door County my entire
All right.
life.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I was born and raised in Chicago.
So thank
in
you
the
for
suburbs.
joining us, Carol.
Egg Harbor Library.
Adele.
I'm sorry,
Egg Harbor Library is
That's one.
discussing the hour of the witch.
I saw that on the list.
touch
Yes, that's coming up.
Well, we're glad.
So I think you should go back and it is brutal, but I don't want to tell you how she'll win out, but
Well, I'm glad to hear that she does, but